Chapter 15. "I've been looking for you all night," Bertrand said. It was dark, so dark, a purple kind of dark that made you feel you were falling into it. I'd stayed hidden inside my hollow, afraid of being found or blamed, and most of all afraid that the girl in the dress was no longer a child, but was now a former child, a being no longer living. "Now I found you." I did not think it was so clever to find me in my actual home, but I said nothing. I was aching. I was so twisted up inside, afraid to ask about the child. I couldn't ask. I wanted to be told. I waited for Bertrand to offer the information. The seconds were endless. What about the child? I thought. "Oh, she's fine," he said casually. "She woke up right after you left. And then everyone was looking for the hero dog, but you were gone. Why'd you leave?" I got scared. "She was blue," I finally said. "Well, she's fine, and they took pictures of you, so everybody knows what you did," Bertrand said. And immediately after he said it, I knew we had a problem. Hearing my troubled silence, Bertrand realized the problem too. If the humans knew what I looked like and what I'd done, I would no longer be able to run freely and invisibly in the park, and everyone would be looking for me. And if everyone was looking for me, I could no longer be the eyes. I could no longer be free. "Maybe it'll be okay," Bertrand said, although his tone said quite the opposite. His tone said it would not be okay. Chapter 16. On top of all this, I had caught some kind of bug. I knew because the ducks liked it so much that the water in that pond was unclean, but ingesting it? Oh, that was far worse to have swallowed that water. What I'd contracted I didn't know, but it gave me the sneezes and halved my energy. I stayed in my hollow for the day and night after the rescue, and the day after that, Bertrand and I made a plan. To test the situation in the park, I would run as the eyes, and he would follow me from above. We would see which humans were out and about and might be watching for me. We would see if I could continue to be free. The sun was still rising above the trees when we set out, but immediately Johnson and Sharif, two of Angus's raccoon friends, stopped us. They were out of breath. "They're everywhere," they said. "Who?" Bertrand said. "The humans," Johnson said. "There are parks people and parks police and some other kind of police and people with huge cameras. They're all over the place. You can't go out there." "They had one of those control the animals trucks," Sharif said. "It was big." Every so often, the control the animals people come to the park and take out an animal who'd bitten a human, or an animal that was not where she or he was supposed to be. Yolanda was once pursued by the control the animals people when she had gone fishing in the peanut pond. It was a lesson to us all. Do not linger where you are not expected. Do not upset the human's version of the equilibrium. Now, it did not mean that the turtles couldn't leave their pond or that I couldn't converse with the bison. It meant only that being too obvious or showy about any of these unexpected appearances would bring the control the animals people, and they were not to be trifled with. They had cages and tranquilizer guns. I'd seen even the craftiest of the raccoons taken in minutes. The gun would be pointed, the gun would pop, the tranquilizer would do its work, and the animal would be packed up in a cage and taken away. Where to? We never knew. "Let's just wait a day," Bertrand said. "The horses are sensing a storm later anyway." So I stayed in my hollow. I remained hidden and listened and looked and thought. I thought about the strangeness of salvation. I had saved the girl, and now I was a hostage in my own home. If I had allowed her to sink, or had simply watched and waited for someone else to save her, I would still be free. I would be able to run untethered, and she would probably be fine, saved by another. It seemed a clear truth that helping with anything or anyone at any time brought with it a unique kind of burden. Because I had always moved at the speed of light, I was unseen, and the unseen are uniquely free. But being slowed, stopping altogether, there were problems with this. I had been captured when I stopped to see the rectangles, and now I was hiding because I had stopped to save the girl. Stopping was a problem. Stopping meant captivity. Helping meant captivity. The wind outside picked up. But then again, I thought, Bertrand and Yolanda and Sonia had helped me when I was a captive of the trouble travelers, and their interference returned my freedom to me. So that was an undeniable good, I thought. Maybe it's always complicated. No help is simple because no one being helped is simple. The notion that everything was complicated was itself sort of simple, and that made me smile. If we go through life assuming everything will be complicated and then it is complicated, doesn't that make us better prepared? What I mean is, if we expect life to be complicated and life is complicated, then life is simple, right? I needed to tell Bertrand this thought I had, this wonderful circular idea I had. I had a feeling he'd like it. Then the rain began. It began with dusty taps on the earth around my hollow. The dry brown dirt around me got wet and went black. I listened to the rain grow from taps to slaps to the hush of rain when it comes in teeming hordes. I decided I could wait to tell Bertrand my new idea. Rain is only rain, I thought drowsily. I slept on and off throughout the day and realized I was overtired. I needed rest. I needed this time alone with all this tiny water from the sky. I smelled the sweet eucalyptus on the wind, such a sweet smell when mixed with fresh rain. It's true. Chapter 17. They say I slept for weeks. It seemed like years or centuries. I slept through days. I woke up in sunlight and woke up in moonlight and always spiraled back to sleep. My bones were tired. My muscles were tired. My skin, my fur, my eyes. I was tired of seeing, tired of doing. I dreamed and dreamed, but my dreams had no interpreter. And finally, one gray day, I awoke, walked outside, and saw them all. Bertrand, Yolanda, Sonia. They were all standing outside my lair as if waiting. We've been waiting, Sonia said. A while now, since sunup, said Yolanda. This meant a great deal, she implied, and I didn't know what I was supposed to say. What do you want me to say? I said. You slept enough, Bertrand said. No one needs that much sleep, Sonia said. The point is, we care about you, Bertrand said. The bison care about you, and they'd like to see you. We'd all like to see you up and about and running. And seeing. Even the ducks, said Yolanda. Now, of all the people who didn't love or trust ducks, Yolanda was probably the most duck-unloving and duck-untrusting. So hearing her say this hit me hard. She cared about the ducks wanting to see me. It messed with my mind. The bison wants you out there, Bertrand said. We've been picking up the slack, but not so well. They've been a bit snippy about it, to tell you the truth, Sonia said. They have so many questions, and even with all of us helping, we miss things. I began to feel better. Better because they had failed at that which I excelled. I was ashamed at my pride. Just then the sun broke through the cloud cover and shone on me, warming me, loving my face, and I loved the sun back. I love you too, I said to the sun, because her love was so obvious and real. But everyone knows what you look like, Yolanda said. There are photos of you everywhere, Sonia said. Wild dog, they say, Yolanda said. Photos and little posters and even diagrams, Bertrand added, so you can't go out like yourself. I didn't understand. Maybe I'd been sleeping too long. I couldn't go out by myself. If you go out as yourself, they will know you as the hero dog who is also a wild dog, and you will be leashed again, Yolanda said. And caged and kept, Sonia added. Probably sent away, Bertrand said softly. The sun had made me calm. The sun had made me wise. The sun had made me understand instantly the truth in what they said. I could not be seen in the park the way I had previously been seen. So we got you this, Yolanda said, and with her beak she presented me with a lump of bright pink. I had seen it, this lump, next to her this whole time, and now all of them were suggesting this pile of pink was somehow meant for me. What is it? I asked. I suddenly felt suffocated and surrounded, and this pile of pink was an affront, a smothering thing. I thought of bolting. It's a disguise, Yolanda said, and with her beak she turned the pink pile into something recognizable, a sort of garment. It was tubular and made of wool with 5 gaps, one on the top left, one on the top right, one at the end, and 2 on the bottom. And finally it dawned on me that this was something that I was supposed to wear. They saw the horror on my face. It's ridiculous, I know, Bertrand said, and obviously it's terrible, but that's the point. This is what kept dogs wear, what pets wear. You will look like a silly pet of some silly human dressed in pink and wearing a collar. Sonia? Sonia now produced something far more offensive than the pink garment. It was a collar, studded with bright plastic diamonds meant to be worn around the neck. It was an attack on all that was good and right. I can't wear that, I said. That or the pink tube. No. Well, then stay in your hollow, Sonia spat. Just stay and sleep and never come out again. I'd never seen Sonia so agitated. Why do we care if you never come out again? We don't care. No one cares. And she turned and ran off. Bertrand turned to the rest of the assistants. Can you excuse us a moment? He asked in that exhausted but wise way of his. The assistants all flew and scurried off, settling about 50 feet away, and when they were out of earshot, Bertrand turned back to me. We are concerned about you, he said. Thank you, I said evenly. I ask you to trust our collective wisdom, he said. We have thought this through a great deal, and we have come to a series of related conclusions. Can I enumerate them? I sighed and looked down. I looked up to the sun. I breathed in, I breathed out. I did not like it when Bertrand took it upon himself to enumerate things. It tightened every bolt of my being. I took a deep breath. Sure, I said. First, he said, you need to leave your hollow and be part of the world again. Second, you cannot leave your hollow looking like yourself. That is self-evident. Third, as you know, we have begun planning a way to get you into the museum to see hundreds of rectangles that will no doubt please you greatly. Now, this third item did get my attention, and Bertrand noticed. I smiled, picturing myself among the pictures in that building. But then he looked at me with something like mischief, something like pity. Lastly, he said, we have devised a brilliant disguise. We, your friends. Because Bertrand is very smart, he knew he needed to dwell on this point, this mention of my friends who cared about me. If they had all gotten together and thought collectively about my well-being, about what might be best for me, how could I flout it? What monster would turn up his snout at the thought-through help of all the friends he had? Okay, I said. Okay, what? He asked. Okay, I'll try on the get-up, I said. My plan was to put it on, deem it ridiculous, and convince everyone else that it was ridiculous too. So Bertrand tossed me the pink garment and the sparkly collar, and I ducked my head into the sweater, and instantly I was stuck. The opening at the neck was too narrow, so I was helpless inside in the dark of the doggy sweater. "Help?" I asked from the darkness. Bertrand and Yolanda tried to help, but their beaks were imperfect tools for the job. They were pulling the woolen sweater apart. "Stop," I said. If the sweater were a mess, the effect would be lost. A dog sweater, as demented and unnatural a thing as it was, must be pristine. We needed opposable thumbs. "We need Angus," I said. "He's sleeping," Yolanda said. "Wake him," I said, a bit too harshly, and I realized how desperate I was to run again. "He'll understand." When Angus arrived, he was not happy. A nocturnal creature, he was halfway through his rest. I could not see him, given that I was still stuck in the sweater, but I could hear his weariness in his voice. "The thing is," he said, "everyone's always got an emergency requiring opposable thumbs, and no one thinks it can wait until nighttime. But you know what? It can wait. It can always wait. Now, what's all this? What's that funny-looking lump?" "That's Johannes," Yolanda said. "Why is he wearing a doggy sweater?" They explained it to him, and I tried to explain, but Angus couldn't really understand me from under all that wool. Now, it's important to note that while Angus and all the other raccoons acted annoyed to be woken up and asked for help, they took great pride in their dexterity and cunning. They liked showing off their opposable thumbs and liked to complete any such mission in as little time as possible, as if to show how easy it was to do things that for the rest of us were impossible. "I'll get your paws through first," Angus said, and helped me disentangle my claws. He pulled one paw through and then the other. "The head part is funny," he said. "It's so thin and your head is so big," he said, laughing. "I wonder what kind of dog used to wear this. It must have had a tiny noggin." "Can we get on with it?" I asked. "Oh, did you say something?" he asked. "I can't understand you if under all that sweater." Now, the opening for my head was indeed very small, and Angus had to pull it on from various sides, widening out the gap. "Try pushing through now," he said, and I tried. I made no progress. "You must have some pit bull in you," he said. "Only pit bulls have such huge heads." Angus had Yolanda grab one side of the sweater and Bertrand grab the other side, and Angus pulled himself, and we heard a tiny ripping sound. "Oh no," Yolanda said. "Don't worry, we're just stretching it," Angus said. They continued stretching until Angus was satisfied. "Try again now," he said. And I pushed, and with my snout I could finally feel the cool air outside. I pushed, and Angus continued to make adjustments, squeezing out one ear and then the other, and I could see again, and soon enough my head was through. "You're in the world again," Bertrand said and laughed. "But didn't you have a tail before?" Angus scrambled to the back of me and pulled my tail out through the horrifying little hole meant for tails. "That's better," he said. It was not better. The sweater was a wretched thing. It scratched me everywhere like I was enclosed in a thicket of dried weeds. And though I could see, this was not a plus, for now I knew that about 15 birds and animals were gathered around me. Where'd they come from? And many of them were fighting back their laughter. When Angus put the collar on, their barely held laughter escaped in tiny squeaks and sighs. "Very dignified," Yolanda said, covering her mouth with her great gray wing. This sweater was a terrible thing for me. I felt very bad, very ashamed, very much like I wanted to be deep in my hollow alone and in the dark. But then Bertrand did the kind of thing he was known for doing. A wise, rational, convincing, and impossible to debate thing. He brought over a piece of glass. The animals of the park had grown accustomed to glass. We saw it on the buildings, the cars, the windows of the homes that bordered the park. We knew we could see ourselves in the glass, and so our reflections were not foreign to us. We knew what we looked like. For instance, I knew before this day that I was the breathtaking paragon of muscle and speed. And now, when Bertrand brought a piece of glass before me, he'd planned it. He'd planned it. I knew I was a ridiculous clown dog clad in pink and fake diamonds. "It will work," Bertrand said.